Hello and welcome to the special Thanksgiving edition of Fairly Awesome Podcast. I will be your host, Staughton Wade. I know you're thankful for that. And you're also thankful for this is going to be a tangent-free broadcast. That's right. All the tangents, no cost. Ryan? I'm pretty happy about that.
There is no way this is going tangent-free.
Probably not. Josh, what do you think?
All I gotta say is nodules.
Chris, describe nodules. Nobody.
Hopefully that was far enough back out of camera.
What has been seen
must be repeated endlessly in your mind.
Chris making inappropriate motions around his nipples.
I prefer the term areoli.
Wow.
I feel so scientific all of a sudden.
I do. It doesn't even feel dirty anymore.
It doesn't. It's not at all. This is going to be a very high-tech episode of Fairly Awesome Podcast.
Yeah.
Chris, lead us off. Let's talk about game graphics.
Well, here recently with the release of the new generation of consoles, a lot of hubbub has been made that these are greater graphics, but that the PCs have always had greater graphics, and graphics don't really matter, but graphics do matter, but graphics don't matter. And the question here I have is, do graphics really matter? I don't think they do. I think that, I take that back. I don't think they are as impactful as some people like to think. Yes, graphics can ruin a game. If a game is decent and looks like shit, that game probably won't be quite as much fun to play because of the graphics problems. However, there are fun games that don't have the greatest of graphics, that look dated, but are still fun to play. So I don't think graphics are quite as important as people like to make them out to be. But I don't know, how do you guys feel?
Do you think it's more of a, like if there's graphics, like you said, like if the graphics are terrible, but the gameplay is good, it sometimes makes up for it? But I don't know if gameplay is definitely... I think gameplay is the most important thing of a game. Like, if you can play the game and it functions well without any sort of bugs or any sort of problem, and whatever's on the screen is not jarred by either bad pixels or something, it doesn't even have to look that great. As long as the gameplay is there, I think it's more fun.
Yeah, I would take that exact same stance, that graphics are a lower rung for me, but they're still important, right? Like you said, there is a cliff you can fall off. If your graphics are so terrible for the era you released in, right? Like, if we went back and played a game from 1997 or something like that, you would go, oh, okay, 1997. So, Meridian 59 or whatever. Okay, yeah, the graphics are going to be terrible because it was 1995 or 97 or whatever.
Right.
But... if it's nowadays and you release something that looks like Wolfenstein, you're just going to be laughed out of the, it won't matter what clever little things you've done, but Minecraft showed us that you don't have to have super high fidelity to even go viral as far as, gameplay goes. That game picked up like crazy, and the graphics, in my opinion, are terrible. It's incredibly pixelated.
I heard somebody several years ago now say that we've gotten to the point where graphics have gotten so good that we've been able to create things so lifelike that actually you're going to see people creating things more artistic, almost impressionistic. Minecraft would be a good example. They don't have to make Minecraft that way. That was a conscious decision they made in order to make it look that bad.
Yeah, right.
If you want to call it that. But it was intentional. Almost to challenge you to try to make these kind of epic things out of it. So I think that what you said about things, if it's a good game in its era, the graphics are almost unimportant because you know what to expect.
Yeah, I would say gameplay probably accounts for 6/10. Maybe even a little bit more, but I'll say 6/10. If the graphics are terrible, that can still land you down in, failing range comparatively. But you look at, and I do agree with the artistic route, maybe where we start seeing some of this go, Borderlands, right? Intentionally looks like drawn figure with the black borders around. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You look at, let's see, what was the other one? Journey was the other one that was intentionally not trying to be photorealistic. There was a Prince of Persia. It was done exactly the same way. Could they have made it more realistic and made it look like the Assassin's Creed of the Middle East or whatever? Yeah, they could have. But they chose a different way that sort of helps it become more timeless, I guess, because it's not so focused on being extremely realistic and whatnot. So, yeah, I think
We're talking about Renoir versus Picasso, basically, at a certain point here, where you're making a conscious decision. Now, photorealism has been attained. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're not to the point yet where we can truly depict somebody lifelike, just because that level is not quite there as far as making emotions realistic. But you can put up a CGI generated person that looks real.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if are you guys familiar with what's called the Uncanny Valley?
No.
Quick explanation of what Uncanny Valley is that there is in graphics design, there's a level of realism that as it goes up, there's a steep drop off called the Uncanny Valley, where the graphics are so good that it looks real, but you know it's not, and it bothers you. It actually
Final Fantasy movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Could be, yeah. That they are so lifelike, and your brain knows it's not real, that it almost detracts from how good the graphics are.
Because it's almost hyper real. It's
Right.
almost beyond.
Right. Do you think that games will run into that, or have they run into that, or do you think they'll kind of hit that peak before the Uncanny Valley, and they'll kind of have to stop because at that point people are going to start not wanting to play these games because they are too real?
Well, it's interesting because there are things that happen to human beings in the games we play that if was depicted realistically, it would be uncomfortable to play. All right, the amount of shooters that we play,
Getting hit in the chest with a grenade or
exactly, it would be a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, we all laughed about Gibbs back in the Doom Quake era, because it was ridiculous. But now they could probably make that look real, and it would be uncomfortable. Like Saving Private Ryan, going way back in the Wayback Machine here, kind of way back. But there's people in that movie that when they die, like your stomach kind of turns because you realized what just happened to
Right.
them.
The sticky bomb on the side of the tank.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking of. But that's perfect because that's that indelible image that it sticks in your head, and you're just really uncomfortable with it. That if that happened in a game and you knew you caused it, you'd be like,
Like I'm sorry, I'm done.
Exactly. Yes. Well, hopefully that's how you would react. Because if you didn't react that way, then we're...
There's the flip side though is, and I think it has to do with not even being able to recognize what happened that makes you get almost disgusted with what happened. Like you look at what is it, Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, where you're running around with. Love that movie. Where you run around with like a big katana and you can like slice guys in literally thousands of pieces, and you can see bone through muscle, you can see the layers as you're slicing. And it is a little bit graphic, but you're not like, I feel disgusted with what I just did. Like somehow it's because it's almost, that it wouldn't work that way, that you're not like making perfect watermelon slices of somebody, like it's not as graphic as it would be. The one that shocked me a little bit was Ninja Gaiden, right? With how quickly you can dismember people in that, and how they like when you do it, they sort of scream or whatever. You cut off an arm or whatever, you cut off a leg, or you totally decapitate, and there's blood everywhere. That one surprised me a little bit because you weren't making like watermelon slices. It was you were dismembering, there'd just be a torso left.
Period.
Right.
Yeah, it was,
and it happened very quickly. Just blades going everywhere. So
the other question is there a limit for how far back you can go? I guess. And
for gameplay?
For gameplay, I guess that kind of is. Like, for example, the first Final Fantasy game was Nintendo?
NES.
And then they re-released it on Sony, the PlayStation.
Yes.
The PlayStation one was 16-bit graphics, whereas the Nintendo one was 8-bit graphics that looked like ass. But the Sony one actually looked like it kind of looks like what everybody calls 8-bit now, which really isn't 8-bit, but like almost was able to make the game playable. Like I don't know that I could go back and actually play the Nintendo version, but I had no problem playing the Final Fantasy version.
I think it depends, right? Because like Mega Man games, totally playable.
Yeah.
You go back and look at on the Nintendo, if you played Mega Man, that is totally playable still.
I think it may have more to do with the fact that a platformer is basically still a platformer. There's nothing really that's advanced in platformers. They may have added some but what still exists is basically just a nicer version of the same thing.
Yeah.
RPGs, same way. Nicer version of basically the same thing. Shooters have advanced significantly from Wolfenstein until now. Like, we were even talking about this since I hadn't played Half-Life 2. I'm now playing it. The level that we've advanced in 6 years, I think it's been approximately, whatever it's been since Half-Life 2, is shocking. And the graphics look fine, but the gameplay itself is amazing, like how far we've come since that era. Era, if you can hardly call it an era.
Almost has to be, though, isn't it? Because it did advance. So many gameplay mechanics came out of what happened in the past, over the past 10 years, and now most games have most iterations of those. You have vehicle control, you have sort of specialized abilities and things.
We've had a similar discussion with this before, not us specifically, but with movies. They've talked about The Hobbit, and they changed the frame rate for The Hobbit, and the complaint was, it looks too real. What? But you realize that there is an appearance that when you become too real, like the argument right now is it 4K capable, 1080p, 720, and I'm like, come on, does it look good? Is it distracting? If it's not distracting, at what point do we just go, I don't care if you're 30K, whatever. It's just silly.
Yeah. I think that, off side tangent a little bit, that kind of is something that kind of bothers me about like the 120 hertz TVs versus like the 60 hertz and the 240. Like, it's hard to get used to the video. Like, because they're so crisp and there's no blur, it looks like everything's in like this semi-fast forward play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get used to it.
There's like a couple of things I watch that are at 60 frames. Like, I have some movies and some like the F1 races I watch are in 60 frames a second, and when they turn, it does look like it's in fast forward, but yet because of the pitch of the sound and just watching clocks roll by or whatever, that it's not on fast forward. It just, the change of direction and like if a camera is panning, because there is no blur, your eyes are like when you turn your head, there is blur. You know what I mean?
Right.
So something in there is beyond what our eyes can do. You know what I mean?
Obviously we're not scientists, but I wonder if there's but I wonder if there's something to do with the fact that you're looking at a 2D image instead of a real, obviously 3D real life image. That when it's put in 2D, your eyes can't perceive it in the same way.
You know what this makes me excited for? Oculus. Yes. Because then you get to use depth. It's no longer, your eyes don't perceive it as a 2D image anymore.
There's actual depth.
There is actually depth.
So, I don't know. I think it's interesting, though, because we were talking about it. If you've got...
Mike may have not picked that up, but there is a herd of cattle running above us from the floor above us.
Cowboy trade thing going on. Anyhow,
cowboy train.
Cattle drive?
Yes, thank you.
You participating in Brokeback Mountain?
Participating?
Sequel?
No.
Whoa.
Woo, woo. Cowboy train coming.
You know what? I'm done.
There was no charge for that tangent.
Nope, done. Dunsies. Is there a point where games stop going back to try and play something that you missed, and maybe the graphics aren't as great, and maybe it's harder to get into it because the graphics aren't as great?
It depends on how fanatical you are about it. There are people that I know still play MUDs. You know what I mean? So it really does depend on what your level of excitement for that type of gameplay is.
You're not going to be excited to go back and play Pitfall. Because if you want to play a platformer, which Pitfall basically was,
it was terrible.
You could play a platformer that has better graphics.
We talking Pitfall or Super Pitfall?
Super Pitfall was beautiful.
Amazing. But the point being is that you can go back.
Well,
if
most of
the
those games,
gameplay is
if the gameplay was good and they did well, they'd make like an HD remake of it.
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye is one of them. Halo.
Did anybody
Yeah, the
actually
first
play
game.
that? The GoldenEye HD?
Yeah, I did.
How did it look?
It looked pretty good. Like, I went back and played, like, before that came out, I hooked up the N64 and actually plugged in GoldenEye and ran through some levels, and I was like, God, I remember this looking so much better.
Yeah.
You know, like your hand is just like this fleshy blob with a rectangle that comes out of it that looks like a pistol, and the AK is like just a big block of wood with some black metal sticking out the. I remember it looking so much better
It did
than
look
that.
so
You know, I
much
was like,
better.
did they just issue an update so you'd go buy the other? I don't know. But the re-release did look pretty good. Yeah.
Because I know I played the Halo, the HD re-release for Halo Combat Evolved, and there were times like you could switch back and forth between the original graphics and the new graphics, and there were times where with the enemies they looked better, but the people kind of looked like ass. Like they were almost better in the old version where they weren't trying so hard for the like kind of realism.
Yeah.
Like they were, flat faced, drawn on faces versus the kind of half-assed, this is the best our engine can do with a human face kind of look.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So, yeah, it kind of bothered me. I was like, I would have, the grunts and the jackals and the elites all look great, but the humans, it's like, they look terrible.
I guess I'll say that I think graphics can get you in the door. It will grab somebody's attention if you have jaw-dropping graphics. But if your gameplay's not there, you really won't keep an audience, and you probably won't sell a second game.
That's true.
Black Site.
Right.
Good graphics. I mean, some of the sun rays I saw in that, we didn't see in another game for a while.
Yeah.
Wasted effort. There would no way I would buy a sequel to that game.
Yeah. I think that to a certain extent is kind of id's MO a little bit, is that they're like the walking embodiment of you can have a beautiful game that is terrible. My understanding, and I think you said before, that Rage was just not a fun game. But
it had so much promise, and then it was just like really.
It was the demo for their Rage engine. They didn't put a whole lot of thought into it.
It was basically.
Which is interesting, because on the other side, you've got the Unreal engine, right?
Yeah.
And it's like almost all of their stuff was like, oh, no, it's just it's kind of a demo thing.
Yeah.
You know, we just made this Unreal Tournament thing that's just supposed to showcase what our engine can do. And everybody's like, oh, this is freaking awesome!
Yeah, they loved
Unreal
it.
Tournament 3 and 4 and Unreal, all sorts of Unreal Tournament games and stuff.
And it
was
blew
fun.
up, yeah.
It was fun. A lot of fun.
Well, totally changing the topic now, but keeping with our theme of technology for the episode of today, Ryan.
Maybe it's Doom related.
Doom. What happens in? I was gonna say, there you go, Doom.
We're going to talk about Carl
Speaking
Urban's
of
finest
Doom,
moments.
And Carl Urban Broner in full force. Tell us about NASA being a bunch of pansies and not putting men on Mars by now, and women.
Yes. So,
Yes.
yes, that was an awesome tangent. So, speaking of Doom, Mars.
Yes.
All right.
Why is The Rock not on Mars right now?
Right, doing the full chainsaw,
Hey,
He's
Staughton, I think there's a few rocks on Mars.
Not The Rock, though.
Oh, the rock.
The
Right.
Rock.
It's probably contractual. He's probably still has to make like 1 or 2 girly movies before he can make another.
Tooth Fairy.
Before he-
Tooth Fairy was not.
Tooth
a
Fairy
fine
3,
moment.
and then he can go to Mars.
What, they
Okay.
made a second one?
The Tooth Fairy 2.
This Rock brought to you free of charge.
I think you might have misunderstood when he said tangent free.
No.
Tangent
free
free,
of
not
ch-
free tangent.
I don't understand
No.
the difference.
All right, so Mars. One thing that I follow pretty closely is like what's happening with NASA and sort of space exploration around the planet. Not just NASA, but like the European space agencies. What China's doing. India is actually starting to get into the space program as well, and it looks like Russia is actually firing up their plans for missions to Mars. I guess my question to you guys is, this is something that fascinates me, but should we be going to our first missions to Mars? should we take the leap, and are they exploratory or are they colonizing? And it's a huge difference between the two.
And I think just to clarify here, when Ryan says he's really interested in space stuff, what he's talking about is that he likes to wield his Neil deGrasse Tyson broner like a lightsaber.
He is a very inspiring talker,
but it's understandable.
Yeah.
He's a funny guy.
So inspired.
Wow. So, what do you think, Josh? Do you think should we make the leap that those that came over to America should they burn the ships and just go?
I don't know if I would do like the colonization thing unless that was something that a third party could do.
Private.
Yeah.
Privately.
Right. Like, and then privately go through and set up all that things. Like, you put the federal government involved in that, and I just think that would be bad. But, like, a mission with the federal government's backing with NASA, I'm okay with. But, with a return trip. Because obviously they'd want to collect soil samples and all kinds of things. And all kinds of science that can be done with. At this point, I think we're concerned with radiation levels and being gone from the Earth's gravitation for so long.
This is one of the moon landing conspiracy theories, is that there's no way that you could have exceeded that distance from the Earth and not died of radiation poisoning. So there is long-term concerns about radiation in space.
Although ISS? I mean,
I realize
you
that,
are
like I
outside
said,
of the
conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
But that being said, it is a fact there is background radiation when you get the ISS is really not that far from Earth's surface.
No, but it's still above. It's above
outside the atmosphere, if you want to call it that. But I think that and now I'm really delving back into my Oliver Stone here. But I think that it's like several thousand miles that the radiation kind of bubble, if you want to call it, hits.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
But
and it is weaker on Mars, so that would be a consideration of what sort of shielding would you have to do? Would you have to go underground?
It would have to be some sort of something that they could do to protect themselves. But I think if NASA's putting something together, you would have some sort of elective to want to do that. I mean, signing up for that is
harder to get the budget for this now, with there not really being a military advantage to having an outpost or discovery on Mars.
We screwed up when we agreed basically not to have any kind of military usage of the moon. I mean, you say, well, what do you mean we screwed up? That's kept the world at peace. Well, but at the same time, it kept us from caring about the moon. And realistically, I mean, plus the Nazis are there, and
the moon. The moon might even be harder than Mars, right? Because there's no water.
There's no atmosphere
that they can easily get from the moon. There is no atmosphere. The core is totally dead, as opposed to you were thinking we might be able to kickstart the core on Mars. And I'm not talking about the terrible movie, The Core.
No, you're talking about the Total Recall. Somebody's got to have the hand thing and press it in, and then there's air, but not before Cohagen melts.
I am totally in favor of the burn the ships method. If not from a federal government standpoint, you can't just round up like, hey, let's take Supermax and send them to Mars. but from the standpoint, you have to give them something for it. You have to give them. You have to say, you settle there, and 10,000 square miles of Mars is now your property.
Yep.
And then you'll see some people on Mars. I mean, that's how we settled most of the West.
Yeah.
Is that we basically
gave them land.
We said, yeah, you go and however many acres or miles it was.
It was basically if you can maintain it and protect it, it's yours.
We did that all the way up until I think the early '80s with Alaska, where basically if you went up there, they would just give you the land as long as you lived on it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that we need to do with Mars. The problem is somebody has to see, from a government standpoint, has to seize this and risk the international incident that would occur if you said, oh, by the way, we're going to set up bases on Mars.
Right. Because
it would potentially piss off people and could start some kind of incident.
Now, as far as gravity goes, because you brought that up, the gravity on Mars is actually pretty stinking close
It's like
to Earth.
0.8 or something? Or is it even
It's
closer?
pretty close.
It's really close. And they are thinking that as far as time goes to get to Mars, there's like this window where the planets are in such an alignment, like they're not exactly lined up, but when Mars is swinging around the outside, there is a window there that looks like 6 months, 6 to 9 months, with how our chemical propulsion works. It looks like a 6 to 9 month travel from Earth to Mars. And then the return trip, you have to wait for that to be fairly close as well. So they're going to be there for a long time because that only lines up like once every 2 years.
Right. That's why almost...
So even if you do exploratory manned missions, as opposed to right now we've sent we sent 3 now, sort of rover / automated, labs to Mars. The moment you send a manned mission, they're going to be there, unless we make bigger advances in chemical propulsion and how we're going to do this, they're going to be there for about 2 years anyway. So this is way bigger than what we would do with the moon. So I'm almost in favor of colonization. You burn the ships. You go, and every 2 years you send another building, you send another...
This is why I'm in favor of a moon colony, is because you learn long-term survival on a physical body rather than just in a pod floating. And even though you're right, there's not the resources, you could theoretically simulate having the resources.
Not the gravity, though.
Not the gravity, no, again, but you're still actually living with your feet on the ground. You're not totally weightless.
No, not
but you learn to make sure that you can sustain yourself in space, basically indefinitely. And that's when you can literally burn the ships.
Yeah.
Because
but moonshins, I guess, or whatever you want to call that, people that would be living on the moon, they'd lose. I mean, they would be at a severe health disadvantage if they stayed there for a very long time, because they'd be losing muscle mass, they'd be losing bone mass.
What's the limit?
You can't stay on the ISS
is
very
6
long.
months, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But that's just the same thing.
But that's
okay.
6
month window from the time of leaving Earth to getting to Mars. You're talking a 6 month window. They'd have to immediately land.
I was going to say, that...
Well, I don't think the idea would be that they orbit Mars for very long before they land. I'm pretty sure it would be like a...
But you could. The point isn't can a single person, it's can a colony sustain itself. And the biggest problem is food.
Yeah, I think that's
you
the
can
problem.
that is a good opportunity to see, can you grow something in the soil that you're basically provided with.
Well, they don't even need soil. What they're talking about, and they're not even talking about the mission to Mars, you have to be without gravity either. Because the one that I've looked at, Mars Direct, or I think it's been renamed a couple of times,
Probably.
is actually...
Planet Express.
Planet Express. Ride the Planet Express. No, it's like the ship is kind of designed like
It's a
a
theme too.
little bit like a building, like a couple of story tall building. And on the end is like a big tether and a weight on the other end. So instead of a round spaceship like we saw in Space Odyssey or whatever, the idea is that you have this building with a counterweight, and you get this whole thing rotating, and you get at least marginally simulated gravity. So the effects aren't as bad. Now the problem is you've now got to shield every side of this thing because it's spinning.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've got to burn some resources to get that gravity to stop, or the force, I guess. It's not really gravity. You've got to get something to stop that spinning force once you enter Mars orbit.
Well, if you didn't think immediately of Star Wars when Ryan said the Force, I'm extremely disappointed in you. But so, changing the subject here, I waited in a giant line when the prequels came out, because I'm a sucker and I didn't realize it was going to suck. And I think that was the last line that I waited for, maybe more than and I'm not talking about Disney's and theme park, but the last line that I was like, yep, I'd be in that for a while. We had a guy wait in line for us for tickets for like a week. So now, since it is, yeah, I hear you. Since it's Black Friday, depending on when this podcast comes out, tomorrow or the day after,
it's eminently upon us.
It's semi-near, and we just went through 2 generational releases. I find myself extremely bored with the idea of waiting in line for anything.
Even with your devices that can keep you occupied while you're there.
Even with devices that can give me something to do. It's cold. I was at a store today, and there was a line it's in the 20s here right now, and this is America. That's Fahrenheit.
So significantly below zero to the
cold.
point where you're
it's
like...
the point where your manhood doesn't like to be outside. Ryan, is that a... Never mind.
Coach, there's some shrinkage.
So now, my question is...
Does anybody else have that where it totally turtles back inside? Is that... No. Right.
Of course
Continue
not.
Wow.
Point. That doesn't happen to me either.
No charge for that discussion of penis internalization.
What we're really saying, it's the July 4th podcast. Fireworks are exploding all over the place.
Right.
But okay, so again, I would never... You got your Xbox delivered.
Yes,
which is
I
brilliant.
dodged the lines, if there were any.
But Mr. Not Appearing on this podcast... we actually waited from 7 a.m. until midnight for the release of his PS4. And
Ridiculous.
find that to be crazy.
Yeah,
Josh, is the waiting in line thing...
It's
passe?
lunacy. There's this great invention called the Go-Ram Internet.
Is that like an offshoot of the regular internet?
yes. I blame you for
Do you have to
starting
go through the
this.
porn section on that? Maybe that's
You
not
know what,
really
really?
there.
And Josh's
stop.
program entered, it's all a porn section.
He has to go back to the original internet for what he's about to
No,
say.
okay, so seriously, the internet, like Amazon's Black Friday ad is out. It's comparable to Best Buy and fucking gets shit delivered. Like why? Why stand in the line? Why wait a whole week to get the crazy awesome TV special for $250 when you can order it on Amazon? And good to go. Done.
Yeah,
Click, done.
I've not.
If you're an Amazon Prime member, it's free 2-day shipping.
Yeah, it was like these guys almost acknowledged a while ago that, okay, Cyber Monday, we won't even try and steal Black Friday, don't worry about it. We'll take our little Monday here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Monday, it gets pretty big sales as well. But then they were like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
Why are we doing
Why are
this
we
on
paying
Monday?
all these? Even I think it was like stores like Best Buy
Yeah.
and Fry's and Kohl's that started saying, "Wait, why are we paying everybody to come in on these days and have crazy fist fights in Walmart and SmackDown,
Tramples and all kinds of other things.
Right. So they start doing these things, these online deals through these same, and then it was just fair game. You know, the Tiger Directs, the Amazons, all the Deals.com, all of them just started getting in on it.
November 1st, I got a thing from Newegg in my email inbox, and it was like, blink, Black Friday specials. I was like, we just got to November. This is at the end. Why? Okay. Then it was pretty good. So I just kept thinking. I didn't buy anything. But
Why? Oh, this is fun.
it's like, it's good, but it's at the same time, I was like, do I really need to spend more money?
Yes, you do.
I don't.
That's the
Bye.
answer.
I don't.
That's the answer.
So I didn't. I've been pretty good, actually.
But Black Friday hasn't happened yet, and you don't know.
I know, that's true.
They could release something.
No, most of the stuff is out. Like, everybody gets all excited about the ads. And you're like, wait for the Sunday paper. You don't have to do that anymore. Everybody's ads posted like
the
3
ads
weeks
are all
You
online.
know who
before.
that doesn't do any favors for? Anyone.
Anyone. No.
Why would you wait?
I don't know.
Yeah, somebody accidentally had theirs leaked early once, and they realized they got a shitload of publicity for it.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
the Super Bowl commercial now, where
Yeah.
they're like, the day before they release it on
It's like,
YouTube.
oops,
Yeah.
I released it. I
It's
leaked.
Leaked it out. Like, that's kind of a good question. If there's all this online stuff to combat Black Friday, and you can pretty much get these deals almost whenever, why has Black Friday been creeping into Thursday?
Yeah, I don't get that
That's
at
a
all.
really good
Why?
question.
That it boggles my brain.
And last year
used to
it
work.
did happen. Last year it was like 6 o'clock on Thanksgiving night. Stores were opening. You know.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Totally.
That was, last
This
year was
is
my first year, like, not in retail.
totally editorializing at this point. Wait a minute, that's what we do all the time. Please don't go shopping on Thanksgiving. Please don't. Because even if you have nothing to do, somebody that works there had something to do, and now they have to be there because your dumbass is apparently free of friends and family
Perhaps
that
a better
like you enough
suggestion,
to have you
if
around.
you feel the urge to go shopping on Thanksgiving night,
Get online.
go to that store, find an employee who wishes they were at home having Thanksgiving dinner with their family, and stand in their position and do their job for 6 hours.
Yes, you go fill in as cashier with a bunch of unruly people that have been in testicle shrinking weather for the.
What do you mean you've only got one elbow?
Exactly.
I'm gonna punch you.
It's just
Already going to jail.
You're going to jail now. Okay. So we've pretty much established that it's stupid at this point
Right.
for several
Wait,
reasons,
wait.
both just from a ethical and online shopping standpoint.
Are any of us going? Or I do not have plans to go Black
I-
Friday shop. I might buy something on that day online.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't. I have. Yeah.
Online shopping is probably going to be the extent of anything that I do. I don't.
There's nothing. I don't need a TV. Now, if I needed a TV, there are some epic TV sales that are going to happen on
It's
Black
true.
Friday. But for $25 more, $50 more, I don't have to wait in that line. I could probably get it online.
That's the other thing too. Is these amazing deals are almost all the time they're ass. Like,
Yeah,
here's
it's
this
a great deal, but
$300
it's a-
Toshiba laptop that's 5 years old. We're not going to tell you it's 5 years old, but it's brand
But,
$300.
I'll tell you, but the TV deals are pretty good. But that's all.
For a basic
I'll tell you-
TV, sure.
I'll tell you an insider tip here from working at Best Buy.
Yeah.
At one point, the deals at Black Friday are good,
But there's only like 10 of them.
and they're not the best deals of the season.
True.
The absolute best deals on TVs, particularly, actually come the week before Super Bowl.
Yep.
You get the deepest discounts
There's
on
a-
TVs then, because they know.
Yeah.
But it changes it, right? Because then it's sort of the extravagant gift. They have to get it because you already just went through Christmas, right? So the deepest ones are where you just splurged on all this stuff for Christmas, so these people don't have a whole lot left for these TV deals.
The deals are usually better too because they're branded names, like a decent TV, like with better resolution,
And they're more broad.
Yeah.
It's almost like
Yeah,
almost
there's a whole
everything
bunch
is
of
But-
different
So you get
brands.
But I
Sony
am
or-
seeing something I've never seen before, which is small discounts or like add-ons for Apple items,
That's true.
which
There's
I've
a little bit of
never
that.
seen before. Like you get an iPad Air or whatever plus something,
Yeah,
which
it's like that $100 thing for
never
Target.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
never. So okay, but consensus: don't wait in line. Don't go shopping on Black Friday. Should you wait in line for an item that you've even already paid for? Should you wait in line for an Xbox or a PS4, or should you wait in line for a movie ticket to be the first to see Star Wars Episode 7?
Even most of that stuff you can buy. Like, you can pre-order online.
Yeah.
So you can guarantee, 99.99% guarantee unless somebody goofs up and doesn't actually send it. You can guarantee it's going to be there.
Right.
So, why wade through the, 24 people who don't ever pre-order anything? I'll buy it the day it comes out.
Yeah.
I've been trying to purchase this, but I'm on the Goran internet, and all I see is Sasha Grey everywhere.
Go right internet. All it shows is Sasha Grey channel.
Even like normal movie tickets, I try and buy as many, if I can possibly, I'll buy it online and then just print it out right there. At
Like, movie ticket wise, about the only draw there is to actually paying for them at the box office is if your student discount still works. If you still have an old student ID. And you're like,
Yeah.
I'm a student.
are you going for your doctorate, sir?
I have not bought a movie ticket for an opening weekend movie in the theater in several years.
Yeah, it's been a while. Most of the time, I think it's because the schedules have become.
Skyfall? Oh, no, in the theater.
In the theater.
Okay, so you bought it online.
Yeah, I bought it
okay,
online.
okay.
That's what I mean. No, yeah. I
We saw a
purchased.
couple of those things, but a lot of that just relies on our schedule.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
That's true.
so.
See,
It would
No,
be it would be convenient if there wasn't one person out of this group that didn't have a second shift job. Hey, you guys want to go see a movie? Sure, anytime after 11 p.m.
Oh, well, that leaves us one theater and one showing. Oh, what's that? You wanted to see it in 3D IMAX?
Sorry,
I'm sorry. Those
The Go Ram second
Last
shifter
show.
here.
those cameras don't work after 11 p.m.
Right.
They turn into pumpkins.
No, I Yeah, totally
Could
agree
be
on
like,
that.
you know,
It doesn't-
IMAX Prometheus. Oh, wait.
I was pretty glad we saw it in IMAX.
I was going to say, what was wrong with IMAX Prometheus?
No, the one before that.
What was the one before that?
This is an extended...
Maybe I only went to one here.
This is a super way out of here.
Esoteric joke here.
Yeah, right. All right.
Major inside joke. Do you really want to bring up Prometheus without the defense of your brother, Josh?
We can bring up Prometheus.
It's okay. I'll stand behind you.
It's terrible.
I won't defend you. I'll stand behind you.
Gooby, please.
It's okay as long as you don't see both
I'm
hands
still
on my
angry.
shoulder.
I guess I'm just very bitter about
So
that movie.
here's what I'm going to even go further. I now prefer. I mean, with the experience of the Xbox One being shipped to my house
How
on
awesome
launch
is that?
day.
Now, when did that show up? Were you off?
6. Yeah, I was not off that day. Showed up at almost right at 6 p.m.
Okay.
But it was on the truck at 8 a.m. So I suppose it really depends on where you're at.
And that's
Yeah, it's
kind of
probably
understandable. I'm
location
sure
wise.
Friday was a friggin' busy day for UPS and FedEx. And
Yeah,
I wasn't going to be able to play it any sooner than that anyway.
Well,
as
right.
I still
That's
work,
what I mean, though.
but-
Like, unless you took the day off, and then you
Unless
probably
that-
had...
And
Mean
now
cold
with
seeps in.
the ability to download virtually any software,
Right,
game,
right,
whatever,
right.
there's really... It's not like you have to wait in line for the
You
game.
know,
either.
like, it's interesting. We talk about release dates, and this might be tangent, but it's localized. What?
localized. Yeah.
Well. No. What I mean is, there's a correlation here.
Localized distortion of the time-space.
Yes.
Continue, Josh.
Damn it.
Keep
Continue.
going. Go.
I'm in Nate's chair, and I'm feeling this.
Yeah. Tangent, go.
Yes. So, why, like, when they release, like, a game, right, they'll release, say, well, that's World of Warcraft expansion, or any sort of game that relies on a time frame. But you can't, I think it was, he who's not going to be on this podcast said something about Sony servers not being able to be logged into until 3
Pacific
Three
Coast.
Pacific.
because it was specific time.
Midnight,
Why?
Midnight Pacific Coast.
I'm sorry, but midnight my
It
time
was
because I'm on the
3
East Coast.
It was
or
3 a.m. Eastern time, but midnight
Yeah.
Pacific.
Yeah.
Which meant that all the people that were East Coasters couldn't play
Couldn't play
online.
East Coast
because-
back to Greenwich Mean. I mean, probably aren't a whole lot of people in England.
Australia.
You know, like anybody. Like, why does California always get preferential treatment there? Like, I'm sorry, but maybe they'll just have to wait.
Silicon Valley.
Or, you know, in this situation, why does it matter who's logging on? If it's all at the same time frame anyway, then everybody's going to get on at the same time. Rather than this
It doesn't matter.
total
And I-
tiered section. You could have it
I
set so
agree.
each time zone is set.
Yeah, or just
Yeah,
you know,
so
like
why
I
do
realize
that?
that they've
That
got
just-
people in the media that will be allowed to log in to an Xbox or a PlayStation 4 or you know whatever, some
Right.
development version of this World of Warcraft expansion you're talking
Sure.
about. Before it launches, why wouldn't you just say, okay, you know, if you've got it and it's we're on the day now, as
Yeah.
soon as it ticks over, so we're talking Japan launches and Australia, those guys were boned for almost an entire day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's
they couldn't
just
do
dumb.
anything. So, yeah, I don't get it.
I don't
all
understand
this
that.
You know,
earns them
GMT,
nothing.
midnight,
Yeah.
everything
Boom,
comes
done.
But see, even GMT midnight, it bones everybody that is east of that, east of the UK. They're not the first ones
sorry, I
to
guess-
hit the
so
deck.
it'd be the day prior.
International Dateline then.
You're right. So Japan
Or not
and
GMT.
Australia
Midnight.
are the first ones to see that hit.
I would almost
I
think,
suppose up in Russia,
No, I was gonna
they're
say not-
sort of Bering Strait there.
not to generalize that, but I would assume Sony would kind of be more interested in that, right? I mean,
Japan? Yeah. You would think.
hitting
Well, you
first,
could
you'd
just,
think,
you know,
but-
alternate the date. So America's on, you know, like a 21st, and then the other people are on a 22nd release date. So it's like one day off, but it's the same day, technically.
Or 20th, as it would be.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Either one however it lines up.
We should do this with the New Year's Eve fireworks. God damn it. It's not fair that
all-
Paris gets to have their fireworks, and it's still the afternoon here. I'm staring at the sun, and they're looking at fiery explosions.
I'm signing a petition
Fuckers.
on that right now.
Exactly. Fuck
I'm-
the French.
Not
I'm
until
in
PST, buddies.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Not
Yes.
we'll just celebrate it at 3 a.m.
Yes.
Exactly. Where
That's what
it's
we'll do.
where it's dark everywhere. Right?
Except for
right. That's how
Australia.
that works,
I
right?
think that's how that works.
Yeah. Midnight,
Once
California.
Once it's
dark everywhere.
nightfall
Dark
in the
everywhere.
Pacific, then it's
Yes.
nightfall everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere's night.
Remind me again next time we talk about going to Mars, you're not in charge.
Seems to not under how celestial bodies work.
I don't understand. We're flat, they're flat. It should be easy to just draw a straight line over there and just send something up.
Shortest distance between 2 points, straight line. Just run a string.
Exactly. Mars is right there. If we just launch, then in 9 months, it'll be right there. It won't be over here.
No. We should be
Two cans and a long enough string, we can still talk to each other.
This is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like tangent back to one of our previous topics.
So let's just go on to a whole new different topic. Mission to Mars. We suggested that we should be perhaps the militarization to a certain extent of that. Josh, as the only veteran on Fairly Awesome Podcast, thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
You have some
Some
topic on this.
Well, I was kind of connected to like.
Nice segue.
So like, I got this.
For your consideration, Segway Master.
Segway master.
No, not that kind of segue. Not that kind of segue. Put your segue away.
We should have the professionals do this. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll take it over later.
Oh.
So thanks for watching, guys.
Did you want to move us between?
Yeah.
You know what? I need host spot. I need host spot.
Okay. So, I don't know, we were talking about, like, military tech and some of the new stuff, and one of the things that we were discussing, there was an article on The Verge talking about the, what's his president? Ford. Gerald Ford. Alright, so they're making a...
Nobody remembers that fucker.
I know, right? He pardoned Nixon, it wasn't important.
The card was very important.
So... The USS Gerald Ford's like this new super carrier that the United States Navy is putting together, and it's like a new class of carrier that they're putting together, and it's supposed to be ridiculous as far as what they're doing, about how much storage they'll have, and whether we need this kind of thing. And then it went into this huge in-depth talk about it and showing all those kinds of things. Is it something that we need, or are we going to get more tech from it? While them putting together those kinds of things for nautical more nautical themes or things like that. And the other thing was like the SR-72. They're making a sequel to the Blackbird, and they're putting together some crazy new thing. I don't know. It kind of looks drony.
A little bit. I didn't see any windows on the concept
I think it was
picture.
all just because how fast it's supposed to go. I don't think they're actually going to have any sort of manned person inside it, but. Those kinds of tech always push the boundaries, I think, of science and technology of its time. And I think for a while we don't see that very often anymore. Not in the, excuse me, not in the length of time and what we've seen to gain from it. You know, like with the space program, we came up with all kinds of cool things like Velcro and Tang and all kinds of other things that they needed to use within the space program, and then, you know, became a civilian, applicable type scenario there. Whereas now we've got all this technology, and most people are still using those kinds of technology that we've developed back then with radio communication, with our cell phones now, with computers, all that kind of stuff is tied in. So I think one of those, it's just kind of interesting to me that, like with a mission to Mars, we're talking about how it's just way too expensive or that kind of stuff, but we're still spending huge amounts of money on these programs. Are we getting anything out of it?
Yeah, that's
a big question.
It's a good question. You're right. I mean, dollar for dollar, when we invest on these super high tech carriers or jets or whatever, and maybe on the SR-72 we're getting a little bit more out of that.
Probably.
Maybe it's somewhere closer to, you know, investment to return on NASA. But what was special about the carrier? What makes this carrier stand out from a current aircraft carrier?
I think it's because they've got it changed so that they have a complete and utter just flight deck that's been it's a little bit longer, but the tech that they're using for lowering and raising the storage of aircraft below the deck, they've got different like a weight system. It's set up instead of it just being this big giant massive thing. They've got a pulley system set up for it, and I can't remember what specifically that was made out of, but it was something different that they used. And they were talking about how it could be used then for freight elevators for other areas because of how easy it is to just take off the it's not a pulley system, but it's something based on that where it eliminates the amount of excess weight, which helps because it's such a smaller area.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge in scope, but it's still from the way that the cement was set up for the first one, it's less weight that they could hold because of how much weight the actual
unit,
elevator was. Whereas this is set up for like it's all piston system and air driven or something like that.
Huh. Well, I'm all for reducing. Like I've seen some of the concepts for like battleships and things like that are instead of in sort of World War II era, it took like 200 people on a battleship. Now, don't quote me for those that are super knowledgeable about the Navy
a
and
lot more than that.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, either way.
I mean, there's a minimum crew that it took to operate a battleship or a frigate or a aircraft carrier or whatever. And I think some of the things they're doing now that automate a lot of those functions, I think that's pretty cool. That they can now make these ships. I mean, you still have to have people on this aircraft carrier. It's not just transporting drones around. But I think that's all pretty cool.
But that's technology.
It's a floating base,
that
really.
came from more civilian stuff and was then applied in the military. But there is stuff that is happening militarily or because of the military that's now affecting civilians. It's kind of dark, but prosthetics have significantly advanced because we've gotten so good at saving lives on the battlefield that now we have to replace limbs.
Yep.
And at some point in Afghanistan, somebody said, we should stop trying to make a leg that's like a leg and instead make a prosthetic that's good for walking.
The blade.
And completely rethought the concept of what a prosthetic would function and look like.
Forget trying to put toes on it and make it conform to that size.
Yeah, let's actually just think, if you had to reinvent walking, what would be good to do it? And so that kind of stuff...
and not just walking, running.
Yeah, that which is a little bit morbid, but that is something where the military.
I don't know if it's necessarily morbid. It's just reality. In a conflict, a decade of war, that we have to fix what we've broken. Mm-hmm. And so these troops that have lost limbs or have to relearn how to walk or whatever, I think that they deserve that kind of.
We actually, and this is, you don't want a protracted conflict with a superpower, but when we were worried that the Russians could be outpacing us on technology
Boom.
advanced a lot faster. Now we're pretty much, from a standpoint of technology, it's all information based.
Yeah.
But that's about it. We haven't really gotten these I would say incredible advancements, life-changing advancements in anything other than information technology.
Is it maybe some of the shift has been away from so much civilian application tech? Like before you had things like, GPS and internet systems that could be applied to generic use. Whereas now you have things that are more designed for protecting protecting the actual combatants. So, drone planes instead of actual planes. Robotic suits or robotic style weaponry that has no application whatsoever outside of battle, or at least currently really kind of has a limited application outside of battle, but it gets live people off the battlefield, so there's less.
Drones is a good example of something that it's kind of hard right now to imagine civilian use for drones. I know there's some people that are like, well, but
there's a lot of people that they're trying to advocate it right now as far as rescuing people. Like lost in the woods and you can fly a drone over and spot the person. But those kinds of applications are how they'll, I don't know, we'll go on a tangent there.
That's not a tangent. I think that's that's a perfect. I mean,
that's what I'm saying is
technology has to improve beyond just the predator or whatever in the sky looking for terrorists to the point where it can be, much lightweight, easier to deploy, easier to maintain. But I guess that when something was on the Apollo rocket, it wasn't at all feasible for civilian technology, but it quickly adapted itself that way. I mean, thank God for Tang.
Now, hang on, though. I mean, there are a lot of technologies that came out of the space race that, that
absolutely.
totally changed how we... Because a miniaturization of almost everything. Because a pound, to put a pound in space, apparently is somewhere around $10,000 in current day's money. So, I mean, back then it was a different ratio.
Next year it'll be $1 billion.
It could be $1 billion.
Possibly.
Whatever it needs to be.
But,
Either way, it's still...
that changes,
that
changes how manufacturers build things, because they get the contracts to make this, and they go, "Hey, we figured out how to make smaller, not resistor based now. Maybe it's something else,
right?
Or transistor. Sorry, but
I know what you meant.
Like the SR-72 is total concept at this point,
Right.
Well, from what I've seen,
yeah, I think that's
maybe it's already flying, and we're just the dumb
It's
public.
something I find incredibly comforting that we didn't know about, like the F-117 or the B-2 until they've been flying them around for like a decade.
And then they wonder why everybody's all crazed, because they're like, I saw crazy lights and nothing was there.
Exactly. It's like, but
it was,
you gotta love Skunk Works, basically. Just flying crap around in the middle of the night. No, we're not doing anything. Nope. And then it comes out later, the black helicopters are real.
What's the point of the anal probes, though?
That's just for fun.
Oh, okay.
I think that's
like
fetish
free
thing.
weekend.
Yes.
They're like, we've got this, and we got nothing better to do.
They were connected to the GoRam internet.
Right?
They're like, oh, hey, land on that cowboy train down there.
Let's explode some cows. Whatever.
Moo.
But no, the SR-72, it looks like it takes normal conventional flying jet and then applies a scramjet, which is somewhere between chemical rocket propulsion and jet technology. It's like it has to be at a certain speed before it can engage, and it sounds like the tech that they got on this to make this thing work is that it now can engage at a lower speed than was previously imagined, and they're talking about ludicrous speeds.
It's like Mach's 6, I think. That's what they're saying. Ludicrous speed. Going to brains are going into my feet.
Gonna have to get the.
That's why I think it's probably going to be more drone based, simply because I don't know if the human body can take that kind of stuff. I mean,
they're doing the X-51 pilots now. Which is like just a giant rocket that this guy's flying. I don't know that I would want to be that guy. Like you see the World War II where they're like somebody straddling like a rocket or something. They're like, that's like actually happening now.
Yes. They're just
controlled by his iPhone. He's like,
it's like, guys, I got this. Hang on.
What do you mean I lost Wi-Fi? Damn. So I don't know. We could see some pretty cool stuff. Like the Concorde came out of that aviation boom,
right? But again, this is we've gone from military driving technology to now it's almost like civilian technology drives military technology.
Yeah, I think
like
so.
There were
they've outsourced it all.
The touchpad, control of things happened in the civilian world before it happened in the military world.
Yeah,
is that not sort of chosen to be that way though? Right, because what's tried and true? What they don't want is software malfunction. Totally,
a lot of
just
it's for them. Like as far as we use touchscreens at work, and we ordered them. And there's no air conditioning in this plant that I work at, and within like 3 or 4 months, they're done. Like none of the touchscreens actually work. They're not designed to be
the
temperature
not
just
regulated.
killed it. So So I think with military, they want something that's going to be rugged, that's going to function.
Throw it in the mud.
Yeah,
and it still
if
works.
I get mud on it, or dust, or sand, or dirt, or something, which is bound and determined to happen in any of those environments that they're currently operating in, and just to wash it off or wipe it off with a glove to make sure it functions is something.
Pressure washer.
Yeah. Certainly.
Your iPad will be fine now.
It looks great. Wait, it doesn't turn it. Not my problem.
No.
Yep.
So you're thinking that they more?
MMP.
It's more to allow the average consumer to kind of stress test everything.
I think so.
In advance.
Everybody's
so
a
that they
beta
can
tester now.
Save a little bit on the. Well, we had to build 6 versions of this plane before we got it right. Well, now everything's been stress tested, so we built.
Well, this
2.
is interesting too, because the F-35, the strike fighter that they're putting together, and every single one person wants this. Like all of the branches want this. They've all ordered, hundreds of thousands of these things through some sort of contract. And it's the Joint Strike Fighter. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Anyhow, F-35, and then there's they were thinking of making variants, right? But instead of variants, they want this like one aircraft to do one thing and one thing, like, and then change it for missions.
Make it modular.
Yeah, so it's modular aircraft, so it has to do like vertical takeoff and landing, but it also has to have this capability. Also has to have like strike fighter type
bombing
capability.
versus interceptor
and
versus. So it has to be able to carry a shit.
Carry all kinds of things underneath, and then I don't know, but you've seen it in a couple of movies. A Die Hard movie had it where it went into that hover mode thing where
the Harrier.
Yeah, it kind of comes down, and then there's this. Turbine or something that's in the middle that opens up.
True Lies is what I remember that from.
But that's
Buffering jet.
Wait. You're right.
Well, that's a Harrier. I'm talking about like the strike fighter. The F-35.
Oh, okay.
It's in
Like the shield platform.
Does the new carrier look anything like the carrier that's in Avengers? If it doesn't, I don't want it.
Shield platform.
Yeah, I don't want it. I don't want it funded. If it doesn't look like that,
No,
does it
needs to
fly?
look like that.
Do the new ones? They got like 4 rotors.
you know what? I don't know. They might be adding that later. Giant airship.
It's like a Windows 8.1 update.
Yeah, something like that.
Excellent.
So we're gonna get ready to close the podcast here, but since it is the Thanksgiving episode, we're gonna go around the table and we're gonna say what we're thankful for.
Oh,
Ryan, you can go first.
I'm thankful that I'm the only one of us that has an Xbox One. You bastard!
Oh, you're about to be not thankful.
Sounds like this pod turned the camera off.
I am thankful for all 3 of our regular viewers. Chapin, you know who you are. Thank you.
True.
Chapin, Ryan's mom.
And Hat Malum.
This podcast for you.
This is the first, Hat Mellum reference we've had in a while, actually. We kind of slacked off on that.
That's all right.
Hat. You, sir. Chris.
Is it like a hat tip?
It was the hat tip to hat, exactly.
It's like the hat tip. What am I thankful for? Stuff.
This is being recorded, so this is where you say like your wife and kids.
Oh yeah, I'm thankful for my wife and kids. I love you. Don't be mad.
Don't be mad.
I thought about you after I thought about nothing. Josh.
I'm thankful that I'm in one piece after my service. I'm thankful for all the people that are still serving. Keep up the good fight. And I think I'm thankful for getting together with you guys and talking to funnies.
I'm about to be thankful for this tear.
Totally off camera. Nate, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for the Go Ram Internet.
Yes.
Wait, that's the one with all the porn.
Also, Goatsy. Side note there.
Side note, Goatsy.
Oh my.
Perfect opportunity.
Is that how you like get into the
Ryan, this is where they reverse Goatsy picture.
I think you should have the one with the cloud that looks like God's opening things, but it's really not.
Look at how inspiring this is.
And I was like, all I can see is gape.
You. Oh boy.
So you're thankful.
Yeah,
what are you thankful for?
I am thankful very much for my wife who gave birth to my twin sons in January, and the fact that she watches them while I come here and do this absolutely pointless exercise that's watched by Chapin, Ryan's mom, and Hat Malum. So that's what I'm thankful for.
And closely behind that, Game of Thrones.
Well, okay, closely behind. I want to say tied because there's that fraction of it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Is that a rounding error, basically?
Yeah.
Banker's Round.
is
idea.
winter coming?
I actually prefer A Song of Ice and Fire because I read.
Is that like those square things with all the squigglies?
The pages.
Squigglies.
Those things are so outdated. The
Squiggly
graphics are terrible.
No. This is great. I always say whenever somebody's like, "Oh, you should get a Kindle," I'm like, "No, I prefer 3D books."
That's a good one. Do you ever get a response out of that where everybody's like, "Damn, I just got lit up by that one."
They're like, oh, now I know what your judgy face looks like. And I'm like, Follow us.
You know what
on-
you're getting for Thanksgiving? A turkey sandwich. Gobble, gobble. Just a draw on your face.
That's the best turkey impression I've heard in a
That's what
long
we
time.
got.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got
Yeah, we didn't know Ryan could do impressions. As it turns out, turkey is
It's the
his
only
thing.
one I can
That's
do.
it.
all he can
One
pull
trick.
off.
Run.
One trick.
One trick turkey.
Not a pony.
Okay. Obviously, at this point, you're unfollowing us on YouTube. No, hopefully not. Follow us on YouTube. It is
Terrible.
Madcap Hijinks for every podcast. The shorts are hilarious. The outtakes are worth it as well, usually.
True.
Except when it's just fart jokes.
Those are worth it.
Happens
Come on.
every fucking
Nodules.
week. Nodules, too.
Nodules was
Go to Facebook. Like us on Facebook.com/FairlyAwesomePodcast. We're pretty easy to follow on Twitter. Twitter.com/FAPcast. Anybody else want to just go off on another tangent?
I want to hear Ryan's turkey impression.
Close
Do
it.
it.
We're going to close it with Ryan's turkey impression. Thank you for watching.
I'm gonna go ahead and need you to
Do a voice check. All right, this is Ryan
You're
talking across the table. I figured we'd fucking. Oh, it like makes the dirty fart face. Like, oh god, that. Yeah, you're fine. Quit talking.
That worked. Who was that? It echoed underneath the table.
It was totally Ryan.
That was not me.
It sounded like it came from over there.
It sounded like from here. It
There's
sounded
no
like
way
over
that was
there.
me.
I think it was just.
No
I think
way.
that was table.
It must have been table. I would have owned
Yeah,
up, and
that-
I'd been laughing about
You sure
it.
that wasn't me?
That's
making the
table.
noise over here?
No, because it echoed like over here.
It was a table fart. Yeah.
Table.
Okay.
We need to lube this fucker.